Welcome to Author Quick Draw. This is your permission slip to take a quick break from the hecticness of your newsfeed and hang out with me, Annie Bucknell, freelance feature writer and women's fiction author, as I get to spend some time playing Pictionary, giving away prizes and having fun with some of Australia's best loved authors. Now, we know that your favourite authors can tell incredible page-turning stories, but can they draw? We're about to find out live now in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and a big welcome to Stefanie London.
Hi.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us at this special time, which is convenient for both us in Australia and you in Toronto, Canada.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, I've got my cup of tea because I'm still waking up. My eyes are still watering a little bit because I'm really not a morning person. And you're at the end of a long day over there.
Yes, you can probably see the window behind me. It's very dark and getting cold now, so we're settling into that like dark at 4 p.m. time.
Oh gosh, guys, where are you watching from today? Give us a like if you can hear us all loud and clear, and let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to see if there's some people tuning in from Stefanie's local time zone as well. So Steph, first I'll introduce you to those of who aren't familiar. So Stefanie London is a prolific USA Today best-selling author. Her latest book is called Kissing Lessons, and it's a delightful romantic comedy set in small-town America. It's out this week. I recently read it and absolutely loved it. It's such a great romantic comedy. And Steph is actually an Aussie expat living in Toronto. So she followed her dream and moved overseas with her own Prince Charming. Steph, what's it like living in another country? Like, how are you missing Australia? Are there certain things that you just like Tim Tams? Can you get Tim Tams?
We can actually.
Oh,
only the basic ones, but I can at least get them. It's a great experience. I mean, Canada, I think culturally is like fairly similar to Australia. People are really friendly and laid back, and it's a great city. But I don't think I would be able to do it without technology. I like Skype and WhatsApp my parents and my sister all the time, and that makes it so much easier. So I don't know how, like, both sets of my grandparents were immigrants to Australia, and like after they left, that was it. And it was like the one phone call a year at Christmas, and whereas I can call my mum like anytime I want, basically.
Yeah, there's still that big sense of connection. How have you coped being an expat during COVID? What's it been like there?
I'll be honest, I'm a pretty savage introvert, so it's not like the worst thing in the world for us. My husband also is working from home at the moment, and so like I think I'd struggle if I was living on my own, but having him here really makes a difference because I've got someone to talk to through the day. And, a lot of my writer friends are scattered all around the world, so Zoom calls is kind of like a large part of my social life anyway. So it's just been hard not to see people here, and I really miss going out for a coffee a lot.
Yeah. Are you still in lockdown there? What's the situation like?
We're kind of unsure what we want to do in Canada at the moment. So some things are locked down, but not everything is locked down. But our cases have really spiked. So, and I'm actually asthmatic, so I've got to be really careful. So we're kind of just like, we have one or two people that we're bubbling with. But other than that, I'm kind of just, being really cautious.
I haven't heard that as a verb yet, bubbling with. I like it.
It'll probably be like one of those words added to the dictionary after this year.
Yeah, it definitely will. So you're having to dial up that introvert switch to survive. You can't risk that as an asthmatic. So you're launching a book during COVID. I think I might ask you about that first, because this is the launch week for you for Kissing Lessons. So I'm just kind of wondering, what's it been like doing a release at this time compared to other times? Because it's also election week in the US. So crazy time to have a book out there. How's it been different for you?
I think it's difficult to kind of capture people's attention at the moment. Understandably, everyone is focused on big things that are going on in the world, and even here in Canada, the US election has like dominated our media and everything that's going on. And so, it's been a little hard to kind of like, you do feel sometimes like you're a bit shouting into the void, but I also believe that like in difficult times, romance novels and the happy ever after become even more important than normal times. And so I'm always of the mind that like the happy ever after is like a good go-to place when things are difficult. And so even if people are a bit distracted now, I know that this story will be around to comfort people whenever they need it. So that makes me really happy.
Oh my gosh, it so is. And you know what? Like, we're not even citizens of the US, but I was addicted to US coverage. So to know that I had your interview coming up and I had kissing lessons there, I totally got stuck into it. And I just got the brain break from the coverage and just the crazy, absolute madness that's happening in the world right now. So you're so right. Romance is just that place that you can escape to. And Kissing Creek is somewhere that I would love to go and visit. Before we continue, I've forgotten to explain how this all works. So if you are tuning in for the first time with the author quick draw, what Stephanie's going to do is, as we continue to ask some questions, she's going to now start doodling her favorite movie. So we'll distract her a little bit, and we are expecting stick figures. No, don't show us up with any Mona Lisa, Picasso, So Stephanie's going to do her favourite movie, and then at the end of the questions, we're actually going to hold that up to you guys, the live audience, and you're going to be able to guess what the movie is. If you guess it correctly, Steph's going to be able to send you a copy of Kissing Lessons. Now, because of COVID, Kissing Lessons is available as an ebook only, so it'll be sent to you via ebook, which means that we can give it to you wherever you are in the world, and you'll have it in your hot little hands fairly quickly, which is absolutely awesome. So, Steph, we talked about how romantic comedies and romance as a genre actually helps people escape during hard times. What do you think, when we talk about romance, there are so many different subgenres of romance. What do you think is it about those romantic comedies that really appeal to people? I don't think I can go past How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days to pick me up in 2 hours if I'm feeling down.
I think there's something cathartic about laughing. And so I think that when people are having a tough time and they're looking for something to kind of pick them up, rom-coms is kind of like a 1-2 punch, right? Because you've got the happily ever after, the warm and fuzzy romance, all that good stuff. But then you've also got some stuff in there that will kind of give you a bit of a giggle or sort of just give you a little bit of that release. And so I think those two things together are just double happy sprinkles on life. It's, very uplifting. And even though there's I always want a bit of emotional depth in my rom-coms.
Yeah.
But I think that sometimes that shade and lightness is actually the most satisfying thing about it, because it shows you that no matter how difficult your life has been, that you can get to a place where it's really good.
Absolutely. And I find that in Kissing Lessons, you did have quite a bit of that light and shade because, Audrey doesn't have an easy life. Things are a bit tough for her, but she does have this great attitude about it all. When you're writing comedy, so in Kissing Lessons, one of the great things about it was there was a real trivia element that went throughout. And I imagine that was so fun to research and write. Yeah. And you got things like Lily the Llama. They live in a town called Kissing Creek where everything is romance themed and pink and red and all of that stuff. How do you does that stuff just come out as you're writing it, or do you actually pre-plan some of the comedic elements to balance it out?
I have a bit of so I'll be honest, I'm not the most planned kind of writer. There's a lot of my process that is discovery or organic or just me not knowing what I'm doing half the time. And so sometimes that stuff just comes to me. But what I've started doing with my books is trying to think about, when I sit down at the beginning, what's one thing that people are going to remember about this book that's not necessarily the romance, something else. And so in this situation, it was it's going to be the llama. And I love llamas. I think they're such strange creatures. And so having that scene in my mind that it was going to happen at some point, that happens from the start. But then the trivia stuff was that was just going to be one little thing in the book. And it grew into a bit of a theme for the book. And so that wasn't planned. That happened as I was writing.
It was great. I had quite a few moments opening chapters. I was oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. So I just imagined you were just having so much fun as you were writing this out.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I'm I used to do pub trivia.
Did you?
When I lived in Melbourne, yeah, and that was we had a group of friends that we've been friends since we went to university, and pub trivia was our thing that we liked to do, and so I was able to to draw on a lot of the memories for that, and it felt quite nostalgic and fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So we talked about Audrey having a bit more of a difficult life and, having that light and shade in there. In the book, in Kissing Lessons, Audrey is actually a carer to her tribe of siblings. So what was it? Was it just wanting to have that depth? What was it specifically about siblings as carers that you were interested in writing about?
I think it was one of those situations where, like, I mean, I'm a real family person. I have a younger sister that I'm very protective of. And so I think that anytime I write a character, there has to be like something personally that I connect in there with. And even though I'm very fortunate, both my parents are still alive and they're great parents, so I've never been in that situation personally. Like, I would legit do anything for my sister. And I found that like an interesting bond between siblings that is almost like when you're the older sibling, it can be a bit parent-like in situations. Like my little sister used to do taekwondo and she had a really bad match one time and I was so angry I was not allowed to go to any more taekwondo matches. I wanted to run on there and protect her. And so that feeling was kind of like something I found interesting and I wanted to explore that on like a more magnified scale.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And the way that you do it and Audrey's devotion to them is just so heartwarming. And I really love how Ronan responds to that as well. Like, you know, he gets a little bit wrong, as we would imagine, but for the most part, he is just so respectful of her. And, you know, the respect in their relationship doesn't dampen the passion. And I really find that so refreshing about modern romance novels. There's been a bit of, I feel, a cultural shift in some parts of the genre to reflect what modern heroes and what women and men are looking for, you know. What do you see, having written romance for a couple of years now, what changes have you kind of been aware of and what are you excited about or hopeful for with romance in the future?
I mean, I think we've seen a lot of change. And I have to admit that, like, compared to other romance authors, I don't think I've even been reading the genre a lot as some people have for years and years. But even in the time that I've been writing, which is about 6 years now, this shift towards more like obvious consent within sex scenes has been a huge one that I've noticed. And because I do write, I've written a little bit at the steamier end of things before this book. That's something that I've really noticed, that it's not just a case of like, yeah, they're both into it. It's like explicit on the page that they have both said, you know, yes, we want this to go ahead. And so I think that's something that's really important. And it's something that I do very consciously put into my books. But even I think just having more diversity, like, you know, that Audrey is a plus size character, when we're seeing more body diversity, we're seeing more neurodiversity, we're seeing cultural diversity and racial diversity. And I think that is just the best thing that could have happened, not only to romance, but just to fiction in general, is that we get to see more people reflected in stories and more people managed with care and empathy.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we do, you know, we know that representation matters. And for a long time, I think romance maybe only reflected one part of life or culture. And we're all enriched by seeing that scope broaden. The consent in sex, in Kissing Lessons, it obviously is quite obvious consent. And I've heard criticism of having like consent in sex scenes, it'll dampen the passion or whatever like that, or it doesn't fit my type. Like if you're writing historical, that doesn't fit. But do you know what?
Yeah.
When you read it and it's done the way that you've done it, it doesn't dampen the passion. It doesn't dampen the relationship or the intensity. It's barely even, you don't even pause to really read it. It's just, it feels like real sex, like real relationship sex, like loving, passionate, intense, physical chemistry. And I mean, that's kind of what it should be like. It's actually quite refreshing. So I feel like it's such a positive move to have that in there, especially because a lot of people coming into the genre are younger women, and to have sex reflect less, I don't know, to have sex, like, I guess Ronan's the kind of hero that if my younger sister had been reading that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm comfortable with her, thinking that this is what relationships are more like. Whereas I feel like sometimes you don't quite get that. So yeah, it's a real positive thing to have that on the page for men and women.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something that I do really think about when I'm writing is what if a young woman picks up my book, what is she taking away from this? That is something that's really, really important to me. And I think the funny thing with people saying, it lessens the passion. One, I think that's complete crap. And two, I think people also said the same thing about the reflection of safe sex, which kind of that sort of changed how people came in. Whereas now, if you read a book and there's no condom, I'm like, she's going to get pregnant. And I almost expect that is going to happen. Where before people thought, oh, well, you can't have condoms, that's going to ruin the love scene. And it's like, now it's just so normalized that you almost feel like, okay, check, that's been done, good, we can, where if I don't see it, I feel like something has to happen, or I feel uncomfortable almost. So yeah, I think that consent is very much going the same way, and I'm very, very happy to see that.
The scary part was when we were having YA novels that had no protection, like there was no condoms happening or whatever. And I mean, yeah. So that is all very positive moves for the genre going forward. And it doesn't take anything away; it just adds to it and makes it feel more real, I think, too. Like less like pornography and more like actual life, but a beautiful rose-colored version of it, I suppose. Although, beginnings of relationships, we all have the rose-colored glasses on, so that's kind of accurate too. Yeah. We talked about Audrey, being a bit more of a diverse character in that she is curvy, she's plus size, and she's body positive. It's not a huge big deal that we dwell on throughout the book. It's just, she has a normal body and she loves her body. Ronan loves her body. Yeah. Tell me how readers are responding to having a body positive, curvy heroine.
Really positively. I think that that's been mentioned in a ton of the reviews, that it's great to see not only a plus size character, but a plus size character where the body image issues is not her conflict. Because I think that we see that, and I mean, I've written those kinds of books before as well, because I think it's an important story to tell. But I also think that it's really important to see people who maybe don't have the body that society has deemed the correct body and are totally fine and totally okay with that, and are in a relationship where they don't feel that that is a concern for the other person. And that was something that was really important to me, that wasn't just Audrey's feelings about her body. It was also the fact that Ronan never really thought about it other than that he was attracted to her, and it was a hurdle for them to overcome as a couple. I wanted a story where it's like, yeah, she's plus and she's totally cool with it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's actually not a hurdle for them to overcome. Yeah. How are you going with your drawing? Have you had a chance?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, awesome. All right. So let's do that. Let's do the Pictionary part, and then we'll hand over to Jem. So if you can just hold that up to the screen.
Can we see it?
Okay, yeah, come a bit closer in because it's just a little bit dark. Okay. Yep, I think I can see that. All right, guys, so there's always a bit of a delay, so we'll just let some guesses come in. So it looks like a building, someone falling from a building. Can you hold it up a little bit more so you can see the bottom layer? Yep, like a police car. All right. How are we going, guys?
I make no promises.
Pardon?
I make no promises about my artistic skills.
Do you know what, Steffi? That's really good. That's really clear. Give us a guess if you're watching live, because there's not. I'm gonna give a bit of a clue. So I would call it a Christmas movie, but some people may not agree that that's a Christmas movie. What would you think? Do you think that's a Christmas movie, Stefanie? Do you watch that at Christmas time?
It is literally the movie that we watch every year when we put our Christmas tree up.
It is for us too. So it's probably about, oh gosh, how many years old now? 90s?
I feel like it might even be late 80s.
Late 80s. Oh, okay. I think we've got a guess. I think someone might have it. Tracy Anderson's asking if it's Die Hard.
Yes, it is.
Yay! Well done, Tracy. Good guess. Thank you for being a good sport and jumping in there. It is Die Hard. So we'll organise a copy of Stefanie's kissing lessons to come to you, Tracy. I'll get in touch with you afterwards, after the show. Okay, so we're going to swap over now, and I'm going to put Jem on the screen. So Jem McCusker is an up-and-coming emerging author. She wants to ask some questions from the writing community, specifically about craft stuff. So I'm going to put Jem on, and then I'll be back and we'll chat some more. Okay.
Hi, Stefanie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Congratulations on the release of Kissing Lessons. I read it in 2 sittings.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, it was absolutely wonderful. And we put out to the writing community, do they have any questions for you? The inbox blew up. So we filtered them down and we've grabbed a couple of really cool ones. So our first question from the writing community is, how long are you given to write a book once it's commissioned?
That's definitely a how long is a piece of string kind of question. So I think that something that would be good for people to know is that I actually have a lot of input in how long I have to deliver a book. So the publishers don't often set that deadline. The authors do, at least the publishers that I've worked with, which is great because when you work with multiple publishers, or if you're hybrid doing traditional publishing and indie publishing, you then have the option to figure out, because I might sign a contract in 1 year, but I may not actually be able to start work on that book for 6 months, depending on what else my schedule looks like. So yeah, I do as an author have a lot of input into the date that my books are due. And then it's kind of a matter of, how long is the book? What else do I have on my schedule? And my agent helps me a lot navigating that, all the deadlines, and one thing moves and then you've got to shuffle things around. So yeah, it's hard to give an exact amount of time, but I do have a lot of input and say into what that time is.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I know there's been a few author quick draws before in the past where, some authors have said, I've got 16 weeks to do a draft and all of those sorts of things. And, it's really good and interesting to hear that there's so many variations out there depending on who you're working with.
Yeah. And I mean, some people have, they might only put out a book or one or two books a year, whereas I tend to have like 5-6 books out a year. And so that, how long takes me to write a book is kind of dependent on what else is going on, and the time that I have to deliver the book is not the time that I take to write the book, if that makes sense, because there's usually a good chunk of that is like runway for other things.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, thank you so much. And our second question, now there's a really new and a little bit of an exciting concept here. We talk about plotters and we talk about pantsers, but what's not as frequently discussed is the overwriter versus the underwriter in terms of drafting. Do you tend to write a really succinct, tight first draft, hitting your beats and you're happy to expand later? Or do you tend to go over and above and hit the chopping room floor?
Yeah, I think I'm a slight overrun. So I'm not going to say that I run like way long, but I would probably almost always go at least 5K, 6K, maybe a bit more over what I want the story to be. And I think part of that is because I am not really a super planner. I'm definitely more of an organic writer. And so sometimes it's like I just have to write those extra words because I need to learn something about the characters. And then if I have an idea that's kind of circling in my head, it comes out a lot on the page. And when I read it back later on, I'm like, okay, I've said that thing 3 times. I don't need to say it that many times. So cut. And I usually try and, I chop at least 5K out in my revisions.
Oh, brilliant. And do you find that you do that naturally yourself, or do you work with your editor to go, where can I chop? How does this work best?
I think the editor tends to sort of point out areas in the story where often I like bury the lead a bit too much. That's a thing that I notice I do in my writing is I'll be like, no, I want to make it mysterious and have secret. And my editor's like, no, you need to tell people this is happening. And so that's kind of the feedback that I tend to get with them, is more about refining the way that the story is coming out. But then as far as the repetition and sort of overstressing a point, I kind of know instinctively when I'm reading it back that, I've said that, a couple of times, so I can kind of pick which one is best and get rid of the others.
Oh, fantastic. And look, thank you so much for your time today. As I said, the inbox blew up, but we're going to go back to Annie. She's going to let everyone know where they can find you on the socials and introduce the next session for Author Quick Draw. Thanks again, Stefanie.
Thanks so much, Jem. All right, Steph, so what are you working on next and where can people keep up with you?
I am juggling multiple projects as usual. I'm actually working on a really exciting series for Harlequin at the moment that is called Pause in the City. It's about a woman who goes viral for all the wrong reasons and loses her job in social media and ends up having to be like an assistant to this really wealthy dash hound.
An assistant to a dash hound. I love it.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a bit of a twist on The Devil Wears Prada, but with dogs. So we're calling it The Dash Hound Wears Prada. I hope we get to keep that title. So I'm working on that series at the moment. And then in terms of where people can find me, I'm Stefanie London with an F because my parents hate me on everything. So Instagram, Facebook, and my website is stephanie-london.com, and you can get a free novella if you sign up to my newsletter. So that's a great thing to check out.
Oh, that's brilliant. All right. Well, Walker, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I was about to try, got my words mixed up, but I was wanting to say to you, good luck with your launch week this week, and good luck with the launch of the new Kissing Creek series with Kissing Lessons. Next week, guys, we're going to be joined by Monique Mulligan. We've had to reschedule Monique, so we're finally going to be catching up with her about her novel, Wherever You Go. So very, very excited about that. Thank you so much for joining us for our extra special bonus episode in the morning. I'm going to let that caffeine kick in, and Stephanie's going to wind down for the night. We hope you guys have a great day.
Bye.
Bye. It's about time for that cuppa now, don't you think? Thank you so much for joining me tonight, guys. I hope you had as much nerdy fun as I did chatting to some of our absolute favourite best-selling authors. You will never believe the people I have lined up for us in the next couple of weeks. So to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the fun or really any of the giveaways, be sure that you've liked and subscribed to my YouTube channel, Annie Bucknell, or like me on Facebook where we go live at 7:30 every Thursday night. You can also find me on Instagram at annie.bucknell where I share more of my daily life and my daily battle trying to write a novel and file freelance feature articles with a toddler in tow. It's good fun. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.